start my audacity.
The audacity.
Ugh, listen.
You want to record an episode?
Yes. All right. Intro
Let's do it.
music.
Cue, cue intro music.
Welcome to the Yaoi Shelf. Grab a seat and relax.
That was some good pacing on that.
Yay. Bow, 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 bow.
So it's my birth month.
Yay. Bow, 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 bow. Happy birth
Yay.
month.
Thank you. As of recording, my birthday is in a few days. I'm very
Mm-hmm.
excited. Me and my one small kidney.
I just picture like a clownfish
That's kind
sized
of what it
like
is.
that's
That's
like
kind of what it is.
Nemo. Like,
Yeah. For those of you who
yeah.
don't know, I had a recent sonogram on my kidneys because I had some issues with that, and kidney failure killed my dad very young. For
Mm,
perspective, I'm 31 and my dad died of kidney failure at 39.
mm.
So doctor was like, "Let's get a look at that. Let's take a look at that."
For real.
And there was some concern about that. Come to find out, one of my kidneys is smaller than the other. Both are perfectly fine and healthy. Just one is smaller than the other.
One is a lima bean and one is like a
Yeah.
pinto bean.
Yeah, I don't wanna know about how much money I'm going to have to spend in insurance for a
Mm.
sonogram whose results have 3 words, "right kidney small."
You should put that on a t-shirt.
I've named my smaller kidney. His name is Frederick.
Like Douglas
I honestly didn't even go that far, but
or
maybe.
Chopin. Okay,
Chopin.
okay. I'll give you that.
So, that's me, my one small kidney. As my
Named
lungs fail.
Frederick. You probably have a small lung too.
As an asthmatic, yes.
Oh
So, what are we talking about for my birth month?
no. We are talking about Dubcon and I guess also Noncon. I mean, because that's the same thing.
No, it's not.
Consi- I mean, well, okay, they are both obnoxious.
Can I help you?
They are both obnoxious because they ruin. Okay, we're gonna talk about it later. Anyway,
So,
yeah.
even though it's my birth month, Aisha gets her way, and she gets a trigger warning.
Hmm,
Would you
hmm.
like to trigger warning the audience?
Trigger warning. Okay, listen. If you don't know what Dubcon and Noncon are, we're going to explain a bit, but just to let you know, we will be talking about fictional rape and fictional dubious consent. And if
Mhm.
those are not your thing, you might want to skip this. And honestly, I would not judge you, but I mean, I wouldn't judge you if you like that either.
I
So
wish you
let's be
would.
real. Like, I am probably, honestly, I'm too, like, up my own ass to be like judging about other people. just like,
That is so
just,
Torian that it hurt.
I'm just like, you know what, y'all, I'm gonna live and let live. You know, I'm just gonna be
That
over
is the
here.
most Taurus response is I am too up my own ass. Accurate. So we're gonna talk about Dubcon and Noncon because I, as a writer and reader of the smut, and Aisha as a reader of the smut, and many of you as fans, have probably encountered Dubcon and Noncon.
Mm,
We're using those terms particularly just because It's one of the few things in the modern internet that I have found useful, because essentially Dubcon just means dubious consent.
Mhm.
Noncon means no consent or rape. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't I don't like the dog whistle that is saying noncon because it does have a softer connotation. I'm using air quotes if you're audio only.
Mm.
But it also I like using non-con in fiction because, and this is a conversation we're going to have, fiction does not equal real life.
Mhm.
So I much rather use the term rape for real people and real victims and real survivors, and non-con for pieces of paper.
Hmm.
That's just my opinion.
Mhm.
You are welcome to agree or disagree with me, but that's sort of where I've been drawing the line in the sand recently. I don't like throwing the word around, the R word around, because
Mm.
I do feel like it takes away the seriousness of real victimhood.
Mm.
However, and again, we're going to go into this much deeper in a little bit, what happens to fictional characters is not upon the same level. I hate that in the year of our Lord 2021, this is still a conversation that we need to, or actually, really just a conversation that needs to be had, because we did not need this conversation in 2011 or in 2001. I wonder what has changed. But dubious consent really meaning like under the influence of drugs or alcohol or my favorite is like magical dubcon where it's like, ooh, I'm hypnotized. One of the first fanfics I like read on AO3 that like kind of got me back into reading fanfic was it was Matt Murdock, Daredevil, and Kilgrave,
Mm.
who's one of the big villains from Jessica Jones, and like
Mhm.
he does a lot of like mind manipulation, and it was like really dubious consent and like dirty, grimy in an alley, and I was like, yeah, in it. Yes.
I like this.
Fuck that Catholic in an alley. Uh, so there's different flavors of Dubcon. I'm not gonna say there's different flavors of non-con, as in real life, no means
Right.
no.
Yeah, it's just no means no.
But
But you know what's
yeah,
funny? You're
yes.
talking about
Mhm,
like just your experiences with with Dubcon in
mhm,
media. It just dawned on me that like as someone who has read romance novels since
mhm,
I was old enough to read like
mhm,
just kind of on the sly
mhm.
like hetero
Yeah.
romance novels.
Mhm,
Dubcon, I think for the longest time
mhm.
was like no like I saw that as just like, oh, that's just what
And we're
it
gonna talk
is.
about that a lot.
Yeah.
We have okay. I'm trying to pace ourselves in this episode because this is one of those episodes
Mm.
that really could be like 5 hours long.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
I think between the two of us, we have a lot of feelings that are like parallel. Like they're
Mhm.
similar, but they kind of diverge in places. But we do reach a very similar conclusion.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Mostly that fictional behavior is not necessarily a predecessor or preteller of real life
Right.
behavior.
Right.
Also, that fictional characters don't have rights. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to go ahead and put the cart before the horse just a little bit. If people cared this much about actual abuse victims as they cared about like the cast of My Hero Academia, there would be no more foster children. There'd be no more shelters. There would be no more battered women or battered children. There'd be no more starvation. If people cared about the mental health and the sexual health of real minors, the way they care about Izuku and Todoroki and Bakugo, there would be an end to like childhood poverty.
Well, you know, okay, I was gonna like hard agree, but then I
Mhm,
thought about it and I
mhm,
now granted it's very hard to tell like unless someone puts their age on their
mhm,
profile, it's hard to tell. But
mhm,
I am willing to guess that the majority of those people
mhm,
who are screaming about
Mhm,
like sexualizing minor characters are like minors themselves, and therefore like even if they did care,
mhm.
like what can they
So
do?
in just my circle on smut Twitter,
Mm,
because remember I'm a bit of a voyeur in that world,
mhm,
it's
mhm.
a lot of adults. Now they're on the young end of
Interesting.
adult. There might be
Mhm.
like a 2020, I would say like 19 to 24. So
Mm,
they might be
okay.
on the young end of adult,
But
but
they're
they're adult.
adults. Okay.
I mean this more of like an attention economy scenario, like not I mean, obviously I'm being hyperbolic, but
Right.
like
Yeah, yeah,
I mean more like in an attention economy scenario. Because think of like Coney 2012. Remember what I just went for my birth month, we just went way back. We
yeah.
went
It's just
as
funny that you say that because literally like a month ago, something popped up in like, was it on my YouTube? I don't know, but I was like, what the heck? I forgot all about this. So
right.
anyway.
So like for those of you who were too young to know what Coney 2012 is, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. But that was the thing that started the term like slacktivism. It was basically like, how do
Mhm.
we make this Ugandan warlord Joseph Kony famous? And it was supposed to be like a whole thing. There's a great internet historian video about it where
Mhm.
he talks about it for like 20 minutes, and it's amazing because I didn't know it was as big of a deal as it was. I was just
Mhm.
having fun laughing at people who thought they were helping. Um, so like in a similar means, just like attention economy, if people cared that much about
Mhm.
real children as they care about like Deku, there would be no
Right.
more mental illness in children. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that, but they don't. They don't. They
Oh,
don't
it's
care.
just they
My
really
my fa-
no.
my favorite part is that when so the big conversation right now in the My Hero space
Mm.
is people not acknowledging Izuku's trauma.
I don't know who Izuku is.
He's
So
the
like
main
what?
character.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
because he was bullied. Air quotes, he was bullied. Everyone
Uh,
was bullied. I was bullied. It doesn't mean that you get to like be a school shooter. That's not what
is
that
that what
is.
he
He
does?
doesn't go bad or anything, but like everyone downplays his trauma. First of all, he's not real. Second of
Mm.
all, my favorite part of that is that person often becomes a bully to push a non-bullying agenda. That's my favorite part. Is like these people get so aggressive about you don't need to downsize his bullying. You're a bully now. Talking about a
Over a
drawing. He's not real. Oh my god, he's not real. Anyways, that's essentially the non-con in my life is that I continue to
Mm.
have to deal with this. I'm just over here trying to find some smut, and it is consistently lurking somewhere in my feed. I thought I had curated my smut Twitter down. I thought I had it down to a science. And like
I
something always
mm-mm.
just seeps through, and it's like, oh, that's enough internet for tonight.
I can't use Twitter first because like no, it
Mm-mm.
as crazy as my just no, my regular Twitter is, the stuff that I see, I don't want to be
Hashtag
on
true.
smut Twitter
That's
because
fair.
the
Uh,
mess.
that's fair. So to wrap up discussions on that, your
Mm,
Dubcon means dubious consent, as in consent is sometimes coerced or gained through less than chill means,
mhm.
i.e., again, like substances, liquor, magic mind powers. Uh, Non-con is a fancy word for rape.
Yeah.
Uh, as I stated, also, I prefer the mouthfeel of non-con a little bit more,
Mm.
especially when fictional characters are
Right.
going through
Also,
it.
too,
Yeah.
for content, especially like audio and like video content
Mhm.
creators,
Mhm.
non-con is much safer to say than rape.
Yeah, don't
Um,
well, 'cause I
which,
remember having to say that a lot, like, on the old, like,
hmm
Quizilla days, like, "Right!" It's like, "Calm
yeah,
down,
it's
stop."
like, because it is a very like it is a word that has a very strong connotation, and
Yeah,
I do agree with you. And it's like I don't want to just throw it around, and it
right.
can be kind of, especially when you're talking about a fictional character, it can be almost like I don't know, it just doesn't feel
There's a disconnect to it
right.
because,
It
yeah,
just
like,
yeah, it
it's
just
not
doesn't feel.
it's not real,
I'm
and
like, this is it's not like rape sounds so serious
right,
for these like fictional.
if you've listened to this podcast enough, I'll usually say, like, Law& and Order SVU crime, and that's typically what I mean when I say that, but again, like, I
Mm,
don't wanna you're right, like, I don't wanna throw that word around
mhm.
with drawings, and I know, like, when I was writing, we threw that word around a lot. It was the
Mm,
early mid 2000s. Gay was an insult. No one cared about the F word.
mhm,
And we threw around rape as a word like a seasoning. I am not excusing that behavior. I don't necessarily think it was abhorrent. I was a child.
mhm,
People do grow and become better. Cough Disney looking at James Gunn. Uh, people do grow, mature, and become better. So I won't like
mhm,
completely vilify that part of my childhood. But I was a child doing the edgelord stuff that
mhm,
other children were doing. And yeah, like that word really lost a lot of its power, which again we will talk about shortly. Um,
mhm.
I put in a joke here that says consent gets an error 404, consent not found. And this is what happens when
I
Aisha doesn't read the
No,
outline.
actually, here's the thing. So I did read the outline, c and I read that part and I giggled, um, and I was just kind of wondering when it was gonna pop up, but
Yeah, I thought that was a very good joke.
Mhm.
I
It
also put
was
in that I also put in a mouthfeel joke for contrapoints. Uh
Oh, does she say mouthfeel a
he
lot?
says mouthfeel a lot.
Oh.
Uh so let's talk about why this is a thing in fiction. So this is what we would call a trope. And we've done some trope analyses before,
Mhm,
where a
mhm,
trope again like is a literary or creative shorthand, basically to get things moving along. Your MacGuffin is a trope. Your damsel in distress is a trope.
mm,
Your UK being dumb as rocks is a trope,
mm.
which is just
Often unfair, but,
oh
you
yeah, like I did not say it was true. That was not me being passive aggressive or shady.
know.
It's actually a trope I hate. They're just oh man, that UK does not know what they're doing.
It's sad.
It's so sad, especially because they write them almost like there's a problem. Like it isn't just them being dumb, like almost like they're neurodivergent or something. Like I actually had that problem with Given.
Mm,
That like the main redhead guy is coded as so awkward that it's like, are you do you have Asperger's or something? And like that's
mm,
not me trying to be like pejorative or downplay, but it's like you are coded as like being so awkward that it isn't charming. I'm worried.
mhm.
Like you're so awkward and you are so out of touch that I don't think that this is charming or nice.
And I
I am
worry about
concerned
your
about you.
yes,
Yeah,
and
and
I'm
I'm
worried,
worried
can
about
you
your ability to
consent?
consent. I don't know if you know what you're doing. Like
Right.
we talked about this with Chicago and
Mhm.
Antique Bakery, where it's like, do you understand what happened to you? And we did get a very insightful comment about that, but like not infantilizing people with disabilities, and that's not what we're
Mhm.
trying to do. Uh,
Right.
but like it is something that at least like for me as a creator and Aisha as a reader, like it
Mhm.
has given us pause multiple times.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is like, I can I think it's there is like a fine line between like
Mhm,
infantilizing someone with disabilities
mhm,
and acknowledging um that their brain doesn't work like how my brain works or how your
mhm,
brain works, and
mhm,
so things that I understand
mhm.
they may or may not, and so I don't want to assume that they that they know, and then which I mean again we're talking about fictional characters,
I was gonna say, like, to save
but
our ass, we're gonna talk about cartoons.
yeah, so I mean
So, why is this a thing in fiction? Well, to be frank, it's an interesting power dynamic. It's
mm,
scary and weird. It is often overplayed. I'm acknowledging it is often overplayed. And I use interesting, you can put as much spice behind that as you want.
mhm,
Because I also have a passive aggressive interesting, and there is a genuine interesting.
mhm. Excuse me.
I d- I do think it is interesting.
Mm,
If you watch a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, you might remember Tatiana in All Stars 3, and she says
mm,
that choices. For me, most non-con dubcon is in that category, most of
mhm,
it. Because let's be real, a lot of it is not handled well.
mhm,
a lot of it is not handled well, but just on paper as an idea, to have power taken away from someone on both ends of the spectrum as reader and as writer is interesting. It's an interesting position to put yourself through writing it and reading it.
Mm.
If it's not triggering. Or honestly, at least like for me, even if it is a little bit triggering, that still is like, ooh, a spice. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that's universal. I'm acknowledging that that's just me and I'm weird, but I'm acknowledging that I'm weird and sexual deviant, but it's it is a choice.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to demonize anyone who is, I'm going to say okay with this. I'm not going to say into it because again like into it feels like a weird way to put it.
Well, because even if I mean, there are people who are out there that have, um, we'll say non-con fantasies, like, that's
Yeah,
a thing. Now,
it
I
is.
not
It
me
is.
necess but, like, and so it's like, if you're into like, you can be into
Yeah.
a trope
Mhm.
that to some people may be icky or triggering, and, like,
But
I'm
that's
not gonna
also like
judge you.
why I really want to keep it grounded in fiction.
Mhm,
Well, I mean, okay, as in just like you will read it and it's okay. Like I'm not even
mhm.
touching what you do in real life in bedroom.
Right.
Like
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm talking strictly what you read, what you
Mhm.
create, what you ingest. Because even there's that line in the sand of, I don't read anything non-con. Okay, that's
Right.
fair. You're
You don't
entitled to
have
that.
to.
You don't have to. So I don't want to demonize anyone who does,
Mhm,
but I also want to validate some of the people who are more hardline. And I say
mm,
some because, like with everything, y'all have to be respectful.
mm,
If someone chooses that they like non-con, and let's be real, most people who like non-con aren't screaming around saying how much they love like fictional
mhm,
rape. They're usually pretty chill people who just happen to like some fictional things that are a little sus.
mhm.
uh you can chill out 1,000% with that. Like I You can look to Aisha and I, honestly, like there's a lot of tropes that we don't agree with and we have not argued with each other over it. It's about respect. Like I
Yeah.
completely get where Aisha is coming from when she says she doesn't like it. And real
Mhm.
talk, even if she doesn't get where I'm coming from, she respects me enough to let me have it, knowing that I'm not using it to do harm.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I guess I just don't I don't know, I don't understand, um, I just don't understand being so upset with somebody for a thing that they like in fiction.
Mhm.
It My brain doesn't, like, compute that
Mhm.
'cause
So let's actually segue into that conversation. Um, so for the millionth time, we're gonna say in fiction. One of the
Mhm,
biggest conversations that's been happening around Dubcon and Noncon recently, as well as other problematic content, is the concern that this is somehow a dog whistle or a secret indicator that said reader or creator is in real life gross.
oh.
Yeah. That
I
if
didn't get
because
this far in the outline, so I'm genuinely surprised.
looks to camera left,
I got listen, I'm go listen, I anyway.
pa- looks to camera left with shade and suspicion. Uh but yeah, there's a lot of talk about that in some not so
Mm,
nice spaces that
interesting.
no, it's not.
No, I mean,
No,
like,
it's not.
interesting,
Oh,
like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay."
yeah. That this is somehow a like when you have a pool, you have like a little like indicator test. That
Mhm,
you
mhm.
reading Dubcon means that you're okay with it in real life. It's an indicator that you're also, yeah. Um, I know a few different languages. I don't say that to gloat,
Mhm.
but in as many languages as I can say no, I would like to,
Mhm.
because where on God's hairy asshole has fictional adjustment ever meant? This is so fucking like 80s satanic panic.
You know what? That's exactly what went through my head. I was like, all of those podcasts that I've listened to, and
This
there's
is
always like, oh, they were, which, okay, to be fair,
Mhm,
a, there have been a lot of,
mhm,
insane murderers and things who have,
mhm.
or people who, criminals, whatever, who have happened to like certain things, and
Right.
then, but that
Mhm.
doesn't correlate. Like, it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't always happen like that, okay? Because there are
Right.
people who are not into the things that are seen as taboo, who are
Mhm,
out here also
mhm. And I
killing
do and I do
people.
want to give some space to people who have made that correlation and it works. I'm using air quotes. So like I'll
Mm,
tell a personal story. The Aurora, Colorado theater shooting.
mhm,
That was someone who was really, really inspired by the Joker.
mm,
And I will say, if I'm at an anime convention and I still see too many people cosplayed as the Joker, I do get anxious.
mhm,
And that's completely on me. I know that the Joker didn't inspire, again, I'm using air quotes if you're audio only, that horrible act,
mhm,
but that now is a connotation that is too strong for me. And I'm working
mhm.
through it. But yeah, like if I'm at a convention or if I'm at like an event and I see like too many Joker cosplayers, I start getting anxious.
Yeah. I mean, that's valid. You're
Yeah.
not running up to these people and be like, "Oh my God."
Yeah,
Like,
I don't like
first of all, I
snatching their
wouldn't.
wigs and like, "Get
Yeah.
this shit off."
And
I'm also
also, I
not
mean,
calling them terrorists. I'm not
yeah,
saying they're
exactly.
bad.
Right.
Like, it's personal, and I can acknowledge
Yeah.
that. I can also acknowledge that it's a little bit irrational, a little bit. Um, I mean, black
I
person
mean,
art space is always going to be the
right,
white
and
person hurt me.
right, just the sheer amount of white
White
men
fuckery.
who like to just walk up in places and shoot, like,
Right,
I don't think that
right.
anxiety is invalid because
I mean, okay. I was trying to be nice about it, but you are correct.
listen, when we talk about white men, we're not especially the straight ones, we're not
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no room to be nice here.
Cis het white men have no rights. Uh, but yeah, like I think that's been something that's particularly troubling for me to watch
Mhm.
is people really using this as an attack. And then again, to
Yeah.
talk about like the doxing and the harassing, like the amount of like youths that have like called people's offices and they're like, this person's a pedophile because they like this show. It's like, you're gonna ruin someone's life.
Mm.
Like, you're gonna ruin someone's life because of this. Like, I know that you think you're helping, which is sad, but like,
Mhm.
these are not soft words. These are not soft words, friend. Like, I know that you think you're helping. Again, you're not.
Mhm.
But like, sweetie, no.
I feel like every time we talk about, like, the youths, I always end up going back to, like, I wanna blame the parents, and not in, like, a negative way this time, but just
Mhm.
because people don't talk to their kids enough about these things, and so, like, the kids are going onto the internet where they have all of this information, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I learned this new word. I've learned about this concept and this issue and this and this," and they're, like, so like, they feel so empowered
Yeah.
and angry,
Yeah.
and it's like,
But I
but their
also,
parents haven't told them, like, "Hey,
I will say, I don't,
chill."
I mean, yes, that is the parents' responsibility, but also there's this huge segregation between the youth and the adults. Because I
Mm,
know when I was coming up on the internet, if I popped off like that, I would, you know how, like, okay, we're both African American.
mm.
You know how if you did something wrong and the neighborhood found out, everyone would whip you?
Well, okay, here's the
Or like
thing,
in theory.
like, because yeah, like, if we're gonna center it in my family,
Mhm.
yes, because
Okay.
I lived in a very white neighborhood, and if
Yeah.
anybody had whooped my first
Yeah,
of
that's totally
all, I
okay.
oof.
But you know what I mean, like colloquially.
But
Like
yes,
okay,
yes.
that's all I'm getting at. Is it like if you were running around messing around in your neighborhood,
Mhm.
like your parents would like take you trick or treating, but like for punishment? That's that's what would happen on, like, oh my god, if I dare popped off like that back
Mm.
in the day. Because, I tend to kind of equate it to, like, how animals grow up. You know, like, you watch, like, lions play, and it's a lot of, like,
Mm.
play fighting, or dogs, puppies. You
Mhm.
know they bite their mom once, the mom bites the fuck back, and I'm like, "Okay, don't do that." Right now, these kids don't have anyone that's willing to bite them back,
Mm.
or not in a way that's meaningful to them. Because what
Right.
they'll do then is say, "You're bullying me." I'm not bullying you. You're wrong.
Yeah.
So, not in a way that makes sense to them or that they can read as a meaningful, "I'm trying to help you."
Mhm.
And I'm willing to put some of that slack on us. Not a lot, but, like, I'm willing to put some of that slack on us as elders,
Mm.
that we
Yeah,
have not
not me, because I ain't gonna
real
talk to none
parents.
of them. That's the problem is we keep on giving them attention,
Well,
and they're
it's
like,
not,
"Oh, they're listening. Let me
but
yell
I
at them some
don't
more."
but that's
No.
the thing, I don't think leaving them alone to stew is also the right answer. I
I
think that they do
mean,
need loving redirection.
they need to get off the internet and not
A little bit,
sneaking
yeah.
behind their parents' back. See, that's the thing. That's why I don't care, because they're over here. Their mom and daddy said you don't need to be on this and this and this, and
I
they're
don't
like,
even
we're
think
gonna do
that's
what we
true.
want.
Their parents probably think that they're fine.
Their parents have no idea. That's even worse because their parents are
Yeah,
probably like, hey, Jimmy and
yeah, they're
Sally, are y'all doing all right? And they're like,
it's like,
yeah, mom.
what year is it? Their names are Jimmy and Seth. What fucking 1950s white propaganda are you? What fucking what fucking I Love Lucy, Jimmy and Sally.
And Jimmy and Sally said, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're gonna
And
go
really
down to the
they're
soda fountain.
yeah, but really they're up in like
Yeah, they're up in like some
up in these
radfish.
like 18 plus spaces yelling at
Right,
adults. And I'm
right.
just like, so I don't feel bad for y'all. If you're
I
if
don't
you're
but
listening to this
I don't feel
podcast right
bad.
now,
Yeah,
it's
we
your own
don't be listening
fault.
to this.
You do
Yeah.
this. You get what you get. It's just
Is the embodiment of the meme "fuck them kids." I thought that would be me, and I'm over here like, I think we should help them.
listen, I have such a soft spot for children. I'm a very nurturing person, but when
Oh
they
god.
cross lines, like if it's like, listen, I done told your ass though. If I told you, listen,
That
I
is, I
don't just
think
tell you.
honestly though, that
That's
is black
black mama.
parenting. I was gonna say, that is black parenting in a nutshell.
If you would do what
Is
I tell
if
you,
if you do exactly what I say
like I'm
and the
helping
way
you
I
out.
and the way I said it, everything's
Like,
fine. The minute you deviate,
it's just
I am
like
leaving you in the woods.
now, I will say that I am a more progressive Black
You
parent where I
are. I
do
will give you that. I will
yeah,
give you that.
but I'm
No,
still
you
listen,
are still a
I'll tell
black
you
mom.
once, and
Right.
then I'll let you kinda go do your own thing, and if you don't do what I said, when you come
Mhm.
back to me, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, baby, see, I told
That didn't
you.
work out for you, did it?
Did it?
Mm,
It sure didn't. How about you go try this now?"
mm,
And then it's like, "Oh, okay, this worked for me." Of course it did.
triggered.
Of course it did. Listen to me. So, children, if y'all would listen to your parents sometimes, then you wouldn't have to be worried. You wouldn't have to be on
Okay,
here
but
on the
real talk,
internet.
parents know this shit either. What parent knows about this?
That's very true. They have
Like, I'm
no
not even trying to
idea.
be mean. Like, what fucking parent knows? We barely know about this.
Yeah.
I live in this swamp, Asia.
I am a whole like in the, and I don't know about what's
Like,
going.
I am Shrek. I live in this swamp,
Yeah, I'm
and
just
there's
over here
still
like
things that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I can't expect parents to know this.
this is very true, and it
Like,
moves so quick.
exactly. So that's why I'm saying it should be the elders. Like, it should be us. It should be that old guard. But, like, it has to be done in a way that the kids listen. I think that's been the problem. Like with real parenting, because
They
you've
don't be
had this.
listening.
Well, because it is not said in a way that you can process it. Because I know I had that with my black auntie. That my aunt could say the same thing two ways, and I'm only listening once.
Mm,
Because I didn't like the way the first one sounded.
mm,
It had to sound like my idea.
mm,
I was a
kids.
shitty 15-year-old.
Yeah, they're all the same.
They they're
I've been
universally the
there.
same.
They're
But,
literally
like, but exactly, but you've been there, like, we have to find a way to say these things in a way that doesn't just sound like, "You're bullying me!" No, I'm not bullying you. I'm trying to help you because you're gonna ruin someone's life and they're gonna kill themselves and it's gonna be your fault. And do you wanna go to jail? You're not ready for jail. There's no feminist discourse in jail. There's only, like,
Mm.
actual rape and murder
And
because
it's
the cops
not
do not care about you.
they sure don't.
The cops do not care about you. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. You are going to ruin someone's life. You will be prosecuted for that. Someone
Mm.
will find you and you are going to jail.
And you can run and tell that.
Right. And there is no hashtag problematic discourse in prison.
Well,
So, um, again, I do want to leave some credence to the individuals, the small,
mm,
the tiny amount where yes, they have read some gross things and they did gross things. I do want to give some credence to that. That is a,
mhm,
I'm using the biggest air quotes I can, valid concern in some cases.
mm,
However, it is always down to individual choice.
yes,
Media can influence you, but media has not, a comic book has never picked up a gun.
exactly,
A video game has never brought a katana to school.
exactly.
A comic book has not ever physically assaulted someone unless you
I
use it as a weapon,
Right, yeah, and
which is
that's a
just kind of
person
funny.
using it. That's not
Which
even
I say,
you're
when
holding
honestly, it's
it
just kind of funny.
in your Can you imagine just a comic book yeeting itself across the
It's actually kind of hilarious, yeah. Yeet! Ah!
That's
Um,
the
so
fact that I just said ew, the fact that I just said yeeting, wow, am
okay,
I a Gen Zer?
I have a hoodie that says yeet in bisexual pride colors.
Wow. The only time I ever hear the word yeet is when my freaking 7-year-old
I say yeet
talks
a
about it.
lot, honestly, and I kind of hate
I'm
myself.
upset that I just said it just
I'm
then.
not.
I'm a
Uh,
grown ass woman.
what does that make me, Aisha? I'm not still a child.
I mean, I guess we're part of the same generation.
We are, aren't
Yeah,
we?
I think so.
We're both still millennials.
Yeah. I'm not even really sure what
Nothing
I know I'm
matters.
not. What's the
You're not
Gen
Gen
Z?
X, are you?
No, that's the one before me, I think. That's my
Yeah.
okay. So no. I guess
Hold
yeah,
on.
millennial.
Hold on. I'm Googling it.
Cuz I don't know, it's so confusing.
Okay. So the official start is 1981 to 1996.
Oh, okay. So I am.
So,
I'm
okay.
I'm an older
You're an elder
millennial.
millennial.
Yeah,
Okay.
cuz I was born in 86.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
So you're there. You're there.
yeah, I'm in
Um, so now we get to talk about something that Aisha and I have both alluded to in the past, and that is
that.
a ye old double standard,
Yee.
a half yeet. Uh, as Aisha had mentioned earlier in the show,
Mhm.
there sure is a lot of Western media that loves Dubcon and Noncon, isn't there?
Oh my gosh. When I like I said earlier, I
Mhm,
grew up literally grew up reading
mhm,
romance novels. Like
mhm,
just that's what I liked to read. That was the easy
mhm,
because like those really cheap romance novels, the Harlequins, they're just so
mhm,
cheap and easy to get a hold of.
mhm.
I ate them up. And
Your
thankfully,
Zane, your Danielle Steele,
yes, yes.
Zane.
Ugh, so you know what? I say that, but I loved the shit out of those. And
Right.
but like, so I was so into all of those just
Mhm.
things that I probably should not have been reading as a child.
Well, absolutely not.
And it's thankfully, and I think I have my traumatic ass childhood to thank for this. I was able to to recognize like I don't want this.
Mhm,
So I was able to read it and be like, yeah, well, I don't want that. However,
mhm,
I was very desensitized to seeing it in um in fiction for sure. And I
mhm,
think had I had a different background,
mhm,
I could have been very susceptible to kind of internalizing a lot of that stuff as a child.
So fun fact, I did.
Mm,
I internalized a lot of that, which we're going to talk about shortly, but I want to hone in
mm.
on that double standard a little bit more.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, so here's the thing. A lot of Western media loves Dubcon and Noncon. There's plenty of
Mhm,
it. You look at any major television show, there's at least an act of violence against a woman. I promise
mhm.
you. It is
The
used as
Witcher.
yes. Castlevania has several.
Yeah, it does. But I love Castlevania. Castlevania is
I
so good.
I don't dislike it. It's not what I was hoping for as someone who played the video
I
games.
mean, listen, okay, I watched my brothers play the video games because I
That's
was
fair.
too scared of all the things
That's
jumping out
fair.
of me. So I do. It's not
Yeah, I
this,
think, and I'm
but
totally acknowledging that that's on me. I'm being a butthurt fan. It's not as close to the video game as I would
no,
like, but
not
I
at
can't
even.
but I can't say it's bad. That's well, no.
S-
I do have an issue with Trevor Belmont. I have a huge issue with his characterization. They just made him Jon Snow.
Oh, see, I've not watched that,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I didn't even as of watching Castlevania,
Mm,
I hadn't watched a lot of Game of Thrones either,
mhm.
but I knew. They made him
Uh,
Jon Snow. Like he canonically was never he was brooding and he had reasons to have a chip on his shoulder. He was never a dick. And like that whole like really unlovable like that wasn't his he was still formerly chivalrous. Like he
mm,
is not that far removed from being one of the noble families of the papal guard.
mhm.
Like he was never that much of a dick. I'm not going to say he was a great guy, but they really beefed up that he's a dick. And I
I but
and
he's a
and that
dick with a heart of gold.
I never got to the heart of gold. He was always
Uh,
just a dick.
oh no, I love Belma. I love
I mean,
Trevor
I respect
so
you. Like
much.
I'm not
And
gonna
his
fight you.
relationship with Sypha. Listen, I stand. And also the three listen, my OT3 actually OT actually OT4.
Okay.
Anyway,
What's your thing?
I'm like a way bigger fan of Castlevania than I expected I would be.
Same.
I'm
I'm
like
shocked as well.
I
I
like
didn't even think you've watched Castlevania.
oh,
That seems
listen.
very far out of your
Oh, I
usual.
fucking love it. I actually started rewatching it with my younger brother because he hadn't seen it, and I was like,
I need to.
"We need to rewatch it."
I stopped at season 2. I need to watch 3 and 4.
Oh, you need to watch.
I just
Okay,
said that.
see, this is what I be talking about. You can't be talking nothing. You can't be talking.
Aisha, how many times have you
Go-
talked shit about One Piece?
but it's okay. But it's always very surface because I'm honest.
And I'm
I'm like I've
acknowledging
never
that
read
mine is
it.
personal and surface. I'm not giving you any shit for Castlevania. I listed
Castlevania
my
is great.
personal reasons.
Okay.
Ma'am, can I help you? Is there something that I can do for you?
I turned into one of those kids on the internet who gets
You're
so
bullying me for not liking the things that I like. You're a racist.
you're a racist, misogynist, and a
Homophobic.
homophobe.
Vampire racist.
How dare you not like Castlevania?
Though it does have one of my favorite memes of all time, which is the before and after of Dracula and his wife. It's like I'm gonna fuck Dracula, and then after I fuck Dracula.
Yes, even they are great. Ah!
So as we stated, there's a lot
Mm,
of Western shows that have these elements, and we don't seem to give it the same amount of shit.
right.
And it's usually the same type of problematic. Um, because I would be willing to hear an argument that, oh well, it's different, blah blah blah. It is no different when it happens in a badly written 90s boys love than it is in Game of Thrones. If anything, I would
Mhm,
argue that Game of Thrones is worse because it's graphic and not usually as stylized as in the way of like at least when we're talking like 90s early Dubcon, it's usually
mhm,
the no yes, which is not
mhm.
better, but on the list of sins It's a little lower down.
Mhm.
So why don't we give those Western shows as hard of a time?
Mm. Hmm.
I think you know the answer.
Hmm. Do
Who's
I?
who's watching the Western shows, Aisha?
I mean, not me. So probably
Cis het white men.
mm.
So of
What? No
course,
way.
I know, gasp. So of course they don't see a problem with it.
Mm.
Or my favorite, I'm digging in on Game of Thrones because that's like my problem child. Uh my favorite is well that's how it was back then. No, it wasn't. Rape was still a crime. Like that's my favorite. That's my absolute favorite. It's like, well, that's just how it was back. No, you didn't just throw your dick at people. That's not.
Also,
Yes.
I love how people like say things like, "Well, that's how it was back then," not and they've never read a
Then they,
book or been there. Like, but at the very
AKA,
least,
no one's been there.
like,
Time travel isn't real, Aisha. No one's
right.
been there.
But it's just like at the very least, read a book.
Not a book. Which book, Aisha?
Just a book, because
Just
most
a
of these
book.
people have not read a book
No,
at least since like
you're
elementary
absolutely
school.
right. Like it's usually people who have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Like,
I'm
this
like,
is
you
how
don't
it
know
was.
what you're talking
You don't know what
about.
you're talking about. Like, no, it was no rape was a crime.
Like they go to a Renaissance fair one time and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's how this is how things are," and I'm like, "Bitch, if
Okay,
you
can
don't."
I be that fan once? I mean, I've never just once, but I went to a summer solstice festival that was Viking
Mhm,
themed.
mhm.
The amount of kilts I saw, the amount of kilts,
Why were they wearing kilts?
because they're pasty white men who are using the Norse pantheon oftentimes to hide veiled misogyny and very veiled racism and white supremacy.
Because I mean, listen, I don't really care about the Vikings, but I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure they didn't wear kilts.
They did not. That's a whole other part of Europe. So we tend to give Western media passively because of its cis het white man audience. Um, what?
I mean, you're not wrong.
I know. I know. I'm aware. Uh, but we also tend to give Yaoi and Shonen a harder time. Now,
Mhm,
here is a decent argument against that. BL does tend to have a very young audience.
mhm,
I was one of those youngins.
mm,
And I can tell you categorically, trauma or no trauma, when every depiction of sex that you've ever seen is non consensual,
mhm,
it does warp you. And I say
mhm,
the same thing for Western media because there is a huge bumper market on Western media talking about deflowering virgins
mm,
and age gaps and things like that. So I give
mhm,
that same shit to Western media as well. I am not absolving Western media, but my primary thing was boys love content.
mhm,
And I will say, without getting too graphic, there are too many sexual encounters that I've had
mm,
where I was fueled by what I had read in media,
mhm,
and I got myself into situations that I should not have been in. Now, I don't blame boys love for that, and I never will.
mhm.
That was my fault for not speaking up. I'm not victim blaming. Like I'm literally I had sense. I had sense. Like that's my aunt's fault for not being able to open dialogue with me and have
Mhm,
valid and grounded conversations about sex and sexuality.
mhm.
That's society's fault for still putting a taboo on female sexuality and sex.
Mhm.
That's a lot of people's fault. That isn't Maki Murakami, Makoto
Right, yeah.
Takato. That's
They're
a lot of
honestly, they're
people's
victims.
right. That's a
They are
lot of
victims.
people's fault before it's Fumi Yoshinaga's fault.
Right.
Before that, there's a lot of people on that list before we start getting into mangaka.
Mm.
So, do I think that that's a problem? Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Of course I do. Is that a mangaka's fault?
Nope.
Nope.
That is not their it's not their concern. Those are not their kids.
Nope.
I mean, I always go back to in a perfect world, I guess, um, like more parents would be would be the kind of people that make their kids feel safe enough to
Mm-hmm.
talk to them. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like some people and some like young people are like, oh, I'd be too embarrassed to talk to my it's like I'm not going in my kid's room and like
Mm-hmm.
sitting down and being like, okay, son. It's just like, hey, you can talk to me. And not only do I say you can talk to me, but I show it
Mm-hmm.
by, like when he does bring up little things,
Mm-hmm.
I pay attention and I'm like, oh, okay, just in a perfect world. But unfortunately,
But also, again, in a way that can be received. Because I know, like, when I was in high school, my
mhm,
aunts were very open about sex.
mm.
Like, they were just like, "You fucking yet?" Like, no!
But
Like,
see, that's so like,
exactly. That's
yeah,
too
no, don't
open,
do
and
that.
I wasn't
That's
ready for that. Like,
ew, no.
right, and, like, but they thought that they were helping. They thought
Hmm.
that that
Oh, I'm
was,
so cool,
"Yeah,
and
I'm a
yeah.
cool aunt. Are you doing the dick in mouth?" Like, no. Like, right,
Even as an adult, like
like, if
my
you're
parent, if I'd be like, well,
yeah,
my,
like, no. Like, and so that was weird. Like, I mean, yes, I was
yeah,
hoeing.
that's
Like, I
weird.
wasn't gonna say anything to them. Like, sure, I
Mhm.
was doing a lot of stuff.
Also, it probably feels like a trap.
It
'Cause
did.
it's
Both my
like
aunts are Catholic. It did.
it's like,
It
why
did
do
feel
you
like a
wanna
trap. And
know?
so,
You're gonna
yeah,
try to beat
it
my
did.
ass.
Yeah, like
So,
again, Catholic household, black, Southern.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
that's a trap.
they
They
don't
don't
actually
care.
want you to
They
talk
want
to
to,
them. They wanna
right. They're
beat your
gonna
ass.
send you to the fucking woods where you're never seen again. You
They're
get
gonna
those Southern families, and it's like, didn't you have another child? What other child?
we don't know who you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm pretty sure you had another child. No,
No?
there's just like an X in all the photos. Like,
Right. No, it's a trap, so don't
it's a trap. So yeah, like so again, like it's being able to say that in a way that I'll listen or that they'll
Mhm,
listen. And again, like I don't have answers to that. I don't know what my aunts could have said that would have made me say, "Hey, uh, this guy that I'm dating who is way too old for me, uh, really wants to do stuff, and I feel
mhm,
pressured because he's older than me. What do
mhm.
I do?" I don't know what my aunts could have said to make me
Right,
feel comfortable saying that. So I'm not
right.
trying to blame them for that. They were using the tools that they had available
Yeah,
from
yeah.
their fucked up mom who did the same thing to them.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
especially in minority households, I really want
Mhm.
you guys to think about generational trauma.
Oof.
It's not an excuse, but it will blow your mind. It is never an
Mhm.
excuse. I am not waving a flag
Oh,
and saying that
absolutely
that
not.
makes it okay, but like
It
when I
explains things.
so, like, for me with my aunts, it was knowing my grandmother later in life
Mhm.
and then meeting her mom. My great
Mm.
grandmother who said that she was glad I wasn't a darky, that she
Ooh,
said, yeah,
child.
she one time told me, I wish I could gain weight like you do. She said that to me.
I
Yeah.
just the things that do they like
My
how do you say that to someone that you supposedly look like? I'm sorry. I just wow. Like and
we
just old
it was
people.
it was my great grandfather's funeral, her husband, and
Oh.
my most of my family was up there, and my uncle got out of the car, and my great grandmother said to the priest, "That's my fat grandson." So if this was her chill in her old age,
Jeez.
because she was like 90, if this was her chill, and I'm over here
Right.
looking at my grandma,
Imagine
I'm over here looking at my grandma like, oh fuck. And then now, like when my aunts talk about their mom, my grandma like, oh fuck. Again, not an excuse, not a hand wave, but it makes sense.
it's yeah.
So
It gives context.
it gives a lot of context. I'm still mad as shit, but
Mhm.
uh, but yeah, like did that fuck me up as a youth reading this? Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I have no. I will not pause saying that. I was in a lot of situations sexually that I should not have been in because I
Yeah.
was hyped up on hentai and boys love.
Right. Also think of like the young the baby gays,
Oh
you
my god,
know,
bless
the
them.
because can
They get into so many sketchy situations because there's just no
mm,
education. No one's
it's
talking
genuinely
about it.
terrifying.
It's really scary.
It's so scary
It's
because
so scary.
ugh, and I think it just one of the things that we say a lot on here is like we try to tell people like please do not use these things as like
Education.
a playbook for real life
Please,
because
please.
and I think like most of us like most of our audience is adults and like
Yeah.
y'all get it but for the small percentage or for anyone who might be listening to
For
this
these
who is a
7% of you that are
child
minors, because I know and I can see you. For these 7% of
please
you that are
please
minors,
understand that
please.
even the like in the stories where the character relationships seem quote unquote healthy, they're
Mhm.
healthy for this general genre of
Right.
fiction.
And
They're
again, like I
still
won't scapegoat American media. Western
right.
media sure does love a deflowered virgin, don't they?
Oof.
They sure do love a 14-year-old deflowered virgin, don't
Mhm.
they?
And
Like
let's not
that's
even
safe.
right, and let's not even talk about, you know, the the gay Western media, because what is there,
Yeah,
honestly?
one, what is there? And
Like,
two,
what
they're just
is
some like
there?
hypersexualized twink with like pound cake on the butt cheeks.
It's just like, what do we have?
Which that is a
Um,
person. I have met that person in like a mesh crop
yes.
top and short shorts that say pound cake.
Oh,
I have met that
absolutely.
person.
I'm probably
That
best
is,
friends with that
yeah.
person.
I know many of those people. That is real. That is not everyone's gay experience.
Right.
Like I was thinking about something because we talk about being gay as like sometimes a surrogate for misogyny. So you know
Mm.
about like poppers, right?
Yep.
So poppers, for those of you who don't know, are a inhalant that a lot of gay men use
Mhm.
because it one creates a euphoria in the brain, but it also opens up blood
Loosens the
vessels.
butthole.
Well, it loosens all of the muscles, particularly the anal sphincter,
That's the one that matters.
but it loosens all the muscles. So it
Mhm.
usually keeps you hard longer and stuff like that. Like it's a yeah, yeah, Aisha.
Okay, noted.
No, you're not
Not from
dosing mouth. You're not dosing mouth poppers. Aisha. I love how I was already there. Aisha, you are not giving poppers to your husband. Water bottle spray. Uh, but that's done because it is an understanding that it hurts.
Mhm.
And that's mm, as someone who has done things with the back door,
Yeah, I've done butt stuff. It's not
I'm not gonna say it's
the
always the
simplest thing.
best, but the 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 idea that it will hurt, that's not true. Or like all the myriad of products that are catered to women to make it hurt less, it should not be hurting
Right,
unless
it shouldn't
medically there's something wrong. Like in my
right.
instance, where I medically have issues that cause that, or
Mm.
psychically you have issues that cause that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, that should not be a thing.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like you shouldn't be like I mean, it can be uncomfortable, especially if it's
Yeah,
like there's gonna be some discomfort, but your
right. But
partner
it
should
should
be
not.
like
Yeah, also they
like
should be attentive
caring.
enough. Right.
Yeah, and they should be like paying attention and like asking you, "Are
But the
you okay?"
idea that sex should equal pain
Um,
is what I'm getting.
yeah.
That sex equals blood and pain. You see that
Mhm.
in Western media, you see that
Oh,
in a
with
lot of
like
Asian media. Well,
through your first time, you
not even
bleed
just
and
that. Like, there's still a lot of scenes in Boys Love with Noncon where there's a ton of bleeding, and it's like,
mhm.
if you're getting bleeding that severely,
That's
like that's a crime. I mean, it was already a crime, but like that's a worse crime. You will
mhm.
get some tearing. That's understood. But like just like the pools of blood sometimes, it's like, did he have a knife on his dick? What the fuck? Like I don't know
Oh
why that's
man.
funny to me.
That's
I'm messed up, but that's very funny to me for some reason.
oh.
Oh, I'm going to hell. So there is a decent argument that can be made against it in fiction.
Mhm.
Uh, so what is our root? What is the root of our love of Dubcon and Noncon? Aisha, do you want to talk about our old friend?
Hello, meet misogyny.
It's all about power, especially
Yeah.
when women write it. It's about power. Notice how
Mhm.
a lot of the people that write these scenes are women. For
Mhm.
many, it's a form of revenge. It's taking back a sort of power that women inherently don't have.
Mhm.
Some of us are victims of sexual abuse ourselves. Now, I do my best not to leech that into my writing,
Mhm.
even though I'm sure I have at least once.
Mhm.
But I know plenty a writer
Mm.
who has used it as a means to work through sexual pain.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
It is the deepest form of revenge a writer can have against sexual pain.
Mm.
And again, as a woman, is also just a fascinating power dynamic because while rape against men is a thing, and I'm not here to belittle it, let's be real.
Mm.
Most of the victims are female. I don't really
Mhm.
like the conversation that happens around like male rape because
Mhm.
it's not that I don't think it's real. Obviously, I do, but I don't like the whole it's just it's apples and apples, like it's apples and oranges, but in
Yeah.
a fucked up orchard
Well, and also it seems like it only gets brought up
as a
in
counterpoint.
conversations.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
like
it's only ever used as a point when women say that something happened. Like, well, men
right.
too.
And it's
Okay,
like, of
yes,
we know.
we know, and that's sad, but like that's not why we're marching today.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, men's rights activists. Men's rights activists. Have you met any of them?
No, I don't hang out in those circles. I don't hang out with men who dare to ask for rights.
So, because I moderate and stuff like that, I've been on a lot of fringes of those circles.
Mm.
Just like going to
Like
church.
what do they think that they are not getting? Like what are they fighting for?
Aisha, I don't have time to discuss this because it is genuinely the saddest and longest thing that I could tell you. To summate, men feel like they are underappreciated for the roles that they do, and that when women strike up conversations against it, it is usually in either malice or cowardice. For instance, when they say that women are in danger, they say, well, men go to war. They are concerned about the rights and placement of the Western male because women are taking over. They have they're trying to make men subservient. Women have become decadent sluts.
Yes. I mean,
Yes, I'm
it
literally sitting here with a fan.
I
I am a decadent
see
slut.
no problem with this.
No, it's bad. No, it's bad
Oh yeah.
because then they cuckold men and they go with less superior but more attractive men who aren't as intellectually stimulating.
Yeah. As
Mhm.
someone who is a fan of NTR, like those dudes in those circles would fucking hate me. Like I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
So,
There was oh my god, it was like some dude who was like a men's rights activist and he's like Western women have become the most decadent sluts. It's like, yeah,
yes.
and also I've never been referred to as decadent.
I think that's lovely. Like that's a compliment.
I felt like a cake. Yeah, like I felt like
It
a
that to me that's a
can
compliment.
I tell you the very specific image that came to my mind and it is the blackest thing on earth.
What some
So do you remember at KFC when they had the chocolate cake?
mm,
So KFC used to sell
no.
this chocolate cake. and it was the moistest but least flavorful thing I've ever eaten.
Was
And
it like one of those like the cake that you used to get at cafeteria, like a school cafeteria, like the wacky cake? Do you know what I'm
no,
talking about?
it was like a bunt, but like a Walmart
Oh,
bunt. It
oh,
was like a step. It was like a half a step above a Walmart cake,
okay.
like the
Hmm.
ones in the plastic, like the plastic 7-Up cakes.
Yeah.
Put it like a half a step above that.
Okay.
Not your local grocery store, like the Piggly Wiggly or like the Minyards. Those were good. No, this is a Walmart one. Yes, I said Piggly Wiggly. I'm still Southern. Yes, I said Piggly Wiggly. But like they used to sell these chocolate cakes, and I remember my parents getting it,
Mm.
and we loved it. I mean, because we ate like shit, which why both my parents are dead. What? But I remember being at a KFC with a friend in college, and I'm like, I wonder if they still have this fucking cake. And they did. But you can't
Hmm.
just like buy a slice, you have to buy the whole cake. And it was like $5 for the entire cake.
I would have.
No, we bought it and we were
Oh.
eating it, and it's just like, this is too much fucking cake.
Mm.
And it's like, it's not great either. So like, we're just like
Oh.
trying to like put force into it. Like, this is $5. And when you were broke college students, $5 is like a lot of potential
That is
food.
a lot of,
Um,
yeah.
it's not that great, but like we kept eating it. It's like whenever I hear deck, like that's specifically what I think about is that moist ass but like flavorless chocolate cake from KFC. I told you it was
Mm.
the blackest thing I could think of. A lot of it is rooted in misogyny, which is not fun and not exciting. Again, that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
That's not an excuse, and I do feel bad that so many women and individuals, frankly, are using fiction to work through their pain.
Hmm.
Um, but therapy is expensive, and not everyone believes women.
Right.
A lot of people don't believe women, frankly. A lot of people don't believe men, to feed that part of the rhetoric.
Hmm.
They just don't believe gay men. Uh, so I see it.
Hmm.
I hate that that's where we are, but I see it. I see it. So, Aisha, is there a
Mm.
way that we can do Dubcon or Noncon that isn't as awful?
Well, actually, you and
Mhm.
I, we talk about this a lot.
We do.
I mean, listen to the podcast and drink every time you hear us say framing, and you're probably gonna like die.
Yeah.
So actually, don't do that. You'll get alcohol
You could
poisoning.
drink every time we say framing or I say optics.
Yeah, right. Don't do it because you'll die.
Yeah, you'll
But
end up with liver poisoning.
but yeah, it's framing.
It's framing. And if you're new to the show and you don't know what framing means, framing is just the filigree and the elements around an act. So one of the big issues with Dubcon and non-con is that it's often rewarded,
Mhm.
especially in boys' love. Your uke will be assaulted, taken
Mhm.
against his will. The seme will do the softest of apologies, and everything
If
is fine.
that.
If that, and everything is fine.
Mhm.
Now, we've said this in other episodes. I don't need every seme to go to jail.
Right.
That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for
No,
realistic consequences. Because if that's the case, then there'd be no media ever. Just everyone would be
it
in
would be
jail.
so boring.
Everyone would be in jail.
It's like, well.
Everyone would be in jail for crimes. But there has to be some filigree of this
Mhm.
was bad. Everyone knows it was bad. And no
Yes.
one was rewarded. Because that's the other scary part is when one party thinks this is bad and the other doesn't.
Mhm.
You see that a lot in the 90s, 2000s BL as well, where one partner is very on the track of no and one
Mhm.
partner's like full steam ahead.
Yep.
So framing is really here to save you if you do venture into these woods.
Mhm.
It must be acknowledged as bad. It must. There can be no reward at the end of it. And there must be a consequence. And when I say consequence,
Mhm.
I don't mean jail. Not every it doesn't have to be a Law and Order episode where every manga ends in prison, but acknowledgement not talking, a stumble in the relationship, there has to be some consequence that
Mhm.
states that this is not acceptable. It will never be acceptable. That it was not the Uke's fault. Because there was also a lot of victim blaming in Boys Love,
Mhm.
where it's like, oh, if only you hadn't done this. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, that
If you do that, I will find you. Like that drives with the fucking wall. It's like if only you hadn't talked to my best friend. Now I'm gonna rape you.
that's a thing that we all I that happens a lot in heteromance stuff too. If you
Mm-hmm.
hadn't, you made me like I did. You know what? Actually, I was reading a Yuri. This has been was it last year? I was reading a Yuri
Mm-hmm.
anthology, and one of the stories really like pissed me
Went.
off a little bit. And I usually don't get like just so angry, but I was so mad because it was like it was for one, it was a teacher student like well so like the teacher or the student and teacher like their relationship started like innocently and then like she waited until the student actually became a teacher herself. So sure, but then there was the power dynamic of like senior and underling, and then there was this whole weird thing where the older person kept saying things like, oh, she's if she would if she wouldn't do, and it was like this girl was just she was just living, she was existing, and this woman was like, well, if she wouldn't do this, then I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't feel this way, and I went, and it's like, bitch,
Right. Like,
what are you doing?
well,
No.
and not to be a doubter, that happens a lot in real life where you get
Mm,
a lot of, well, if she hadn't been wearing that dress, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I had a dress on that says please rape me.
mhm.
I wasn't aware.
You know what?
Yes.
Okay, I just had this thought
Okay.
about so yeah, I had this thought
Mm-hmm.
that I think in general I
Mm-hmm.
am pretty okay with exploration of like most things
Mm-hmm.
and in fiction.
Mm-hmm.
I think that where I do tend to be sensitive is
Mm-hmm.
when it's reflecting harmful things that we see in real life.
Exactly. Exactly. And even
So,
I have a hard time with that. Like I know I mentioned that I'm usually the one that's more palatable with this, but I
mhm,
have a lot of hard stances. Like I don't like it when it was done the way it was when I first started reading Yaoi, where
mhm,
it's like just thrown in as a seasoning. Like, oh, we're just gonna have some
yeah,
rape. We're just gonna have some non-con, just sprinkle that in. I think that that's tasteless and harmful. So
mhm,
like if you listen to me talk about the series that I like that have Dubcon and non-con, they have a lot of consequences to them. I will die on this horse. I think Maiden Rose does it the best.
mm,
Klaus is never rewarded for him being monstrous.
yeah.
Ever.
You know, it actually
Yes.
makes me think of Fumi Yoshinaga,
Hmm.
Solfege,
Yeah.
is one of her like, I almost didn't keep
Hmm.
that one because I really just do not like the quote unquote relationship,
Hmm.
but I ended up appreciating it
Hmm.
for the fact that now, although his consequence, like I would have loved to see more consequences
You
from
wanted
this
him to go to
man.
jail.
Yeah, or
You
he
wanted him
actually
to go to jail.
I wanted his ass to get beat, and then I wanted him to get killed. Uh, I mean,
Okay. Go on.
a couple of those things, kind of. Anyway,
They
but
said
like
they're drawings.
exactly. So, but like I was able to actually like step back and be like, you know what, this
Hmm.
is actually a really interesting story, and it's like
Hmm.
exploring something that I'm like, ooh, this makes me uncomfortable, but it's in like I don't want to say a good way, but like it's
No,
just
I
an
mean, but
interesting,
I get what you're saying with
yeah.
that. Like, I get what you're saying with that. And I do
Mm,
think that there is space for series that aren't necessarily framed well. So, like,
mm,
Gravitation comes to mind with some of the mega mixes and the remixes, where Yuki Eri is sexually abused by his teacher, and it's not framed well at all,
mm,
but that's also a pretty accurate way that a lot of people who are sexually abused as minors deal with that. And it
mhm,
isn't meant to represent real life. It isn't meant to be an accurate depiction of trauma. Again, it's not a playbook,
mhm,
but
mhm,
it's not necessarily framed as romantic, like there's flowers and stuff, it is framed as romantic in Aries' warped mind because
Mhm.
that's what happened to him. He was in love with his sensei. And as far as he
Mhm.
was concerned, that meant being taken at a very young age.
Mhm.
So even if it might not be framed as well as other series on paper, it's framed within the context of that series as still something that's monstrous and terrible and has consequences that last for over a decade.
Mhm.
Like, so while that might not be, if you might read that superficially and think, well, that's not framed well. In
Mhm.
the context of the show, it is. So you do have to
Right.
be careful with your framing. If you try to think of everything as a rigid frame, again, like not everything is going to look exact. Not everything's going to look like a Law and Order SVU episode where there's like, a dude gets his dick cut off and everything is fine. No, sometimes that framing is going to be a little bit different, and it might not even be satisfying.
Yeah.
I think people who, especially like newer lenses, when they read Dubcon and Noncon, they want it to be this like satisfying like Xena warrior princess moment where like dude is murdered and like everything bad happens because he was bad, and it's like I get that desire,
Mhm.
but like, that's not realistic.
Yeah. And
Um,
even if it wasn't realistic, like I again, like there we, it's nice to have spaces where you can explore all kinds of things.
it
You know what I
is.
mean? Like, and I feel like fiction, I don't know. I don't want to um do too, like I don't want to do too much policing because I feel like that's a good space to like
Yeah.
explore just
Also, we're not
wild
qualified to do that policing. Like, there are
like
some very fascinating conversations on the
mm,
internet about like pedophiles who haven't offended yet and if they should be
mhm.
allowed to do some of this stuff because it gets out the urges, using air quotes.
Mhm.
There are some fantastic ethical conversations between people with more degrees than either of us.
Yep. Mhm.
That is not in my pay grade. I'm not going to pretend it's in my pay grade. I don't have the answers and I never will.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
those are some great conversations to have by people much smarter than we are. We are two perverts on the internet who decided to start a podcast. That's what we are. Amanda tried to save this show. Like, we are not in any way qualified to make those decisions, nor will we
Listen,
ever.
I was simply saying that,
I know. I'm giving you a hard
it's
time.
it's
My
not my place, but,
yeah. My degree from ITT Tech does not qualify me. My master's printed on a construction paper does not qualify me for this conversation. But framing usually can help.
Mm,
I find that framing is usually what saves me. And again, like it's not always like when I say consequence, it's not always as like concrete of a consequence as I'd like, but like there has to at least be an acknowledgement that this was bad. That's usually like my bare minimum. There
mm,
has to be an acknowledgement that this was bad and that it's
mhm,
unacceptable and that it wasn't the Uke's fault. Um, and even if there is still some victim blaming, because to go back to Maiden Rose, Klaus does some decent victim blaming at Taki, but like it's ambiguous enough to where like you as reader can make that decision.
mm,
Because there is some stuff without getting into spoilers that could be a decent argument for why Klaus is so angry. Again,
mhm,
not enough to do a crime, but when you've read the series, okay, I can see how you may have drawn some conclusions and some feelings about this. Again,
mhm,
not enough to rationalize how you've acted out those feelings, but I can see how you got here. So, that's really as much as we have to say about Dubcon and Noncon without this becoming a 5-hour show that ends with both of us falling asleep on camera, because that's what would happen. It would just
Yes.
be it would just be us asleep.
Honestly, I would just get up.
You
I
would.
wouldn't sit
You would
here.
just
I
put on
would be
you
like,
just stay
"Okay,
on there for
bye."
bye. You would. You would
I'm like, "I'm hungry,
yeah, I would
and
get
I'm
like an I'm
tired."
tired, bye.
Bye.
So, Aisha, where can the people find us?
You can find us on Twitter at the Yaoi Shelf.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us on Anchor,
Mm-hmm.
also the Yaoi Shelf, and
Mm-hmm.
also, of course, here if you're watching this
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
at the Yaoi Shelf.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
Yes.
Uh, what do you want to do next month?
That is a good question. What's on our list?
You did not just say that is a good question to me. You did not just
Well, it
say
doesn't say in the
this is supposed to be a
outline.
conversation, Aisha. It's not my birth month anymore. I don't get to make these decisions unilaterally.
Oh, well.
I'm not a
Let's
dictator. I'm just a dick.
let's see. Hmm. I have to find the list because
Oh my god.
it's pretty far. I don't know where it is,
Oh my.
honestly. Hold on. Let me
She did not
Here it
just
is.
say.
I found it. Okay.
She did not just say.
Okay. So we hmm. Do we want to do an author retrospective?
Sure.
Maybe Ko Yoneda? Because I think I have quite a few of hers. I would say Scarlet Barrico, but
Because you hate me.
I mean, but the only thing that I really like by her is Jackass.
I like nothing of hers.
So,
Well,
yeah.
no, I said that there was one shot that I liked. Yeah, let's do Call Yoneda.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna talk about Call Yoneda next episode, which is going to be spicy and mostly me talking about Twitter and birds.
Yeah, I figured, but that
Well,
also gives
we
me
both like
an
Knights.
yes,
We both
that
like
I
that one.
love.
Um, I've read some of her other stuff.
Hmm.
It's a good opportunity for me to read some of her other
Yeah,
stuff that
and
I haven't in a while.
right, and I was like, it'll give me even more incentive to catch up with Twittering Bird. Well, read the ones that I've got.
I'm
Um,
gonna rewatch that movie
yeah.
that dubbed Domeki's voice too deep. Uh, thank you guys for listening.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you all in our live episode where Aisha's gonna read Lies or Gentleman's Manners, and we're gonna
I'm
talk about it.
excited.
I think you're gonna love it. If you haven't read it already, I
Mm.
think you're gonna love it.
I haven't because I wanted to wait until it was a little bit closer
Yeah.
so I don't forget. So it's fresh. So,
Oh, we also have a Discord. We forgot to mention that.
oh yeah, I did forget to mention that.
We have a Discord.
Discord.
It's usually pretty chill, which is nice
Hmm.
because, as I said before we started recording, it means less work for me
Yeah.
because Aisha has me out here in the fields
I mean,
with
you knew what it was.
with Jimmy the Roomba. We're just both out here in the fields,
Just, I pop in every
wading
now
in the
and then.
water.
I
Bye.
just don't be having anything to say. I'm
You
like, I
have
don't
so
do
much to.
anything.
No, no. If you put half the energy of Twitter into Discord,
All I
no.
do on Twitter is post pictures of myself.
You can do that in Discord.
No, because it's not the same. It's not the same. I post the pictures so that I can get compliments. Okay. Nobody in the Yaoi Shelf Discord is checking for my ass because everyone is intimate.
Aisha out here fishing, just
That's
openly,
exactly there's what other
just
reason is there to
openly.
put pictures on the internet? Like I ain't got time to do all of that for nothing for crickets. I do that for crickets.
You
I'm
little
posting
skank.
pictures to get. That's why I have an OnlyFans.
You little hoe.
Anyway, bye.
Bye.